Hi, my name is Dani Nordin, and I am going to show you today how to make dilly beans, which are one of my favorite New England traditions and one of the things that I spend every August doing after I get all the stuff from my farm share. I'm also going to make dilly carrots because the recipe is basically the same. You just switch out the vegetables and they're both incredibly tasty. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is setting up your canner. What you want to do, what we're going to be doing today is water bath canning, which is very different from pressure canning. You want to use water bath canning for any kind of pickles, any kind of vinegar-based stuff, because you don't want to cook it for too long. Pressure canning you would use for things like tomatoes, vegetable stock, things that require a long processing time. But water bath canning is what we're going to do today. This is a really, really old one that I got from my grandmother, but you can get this at most hardware stores, craft supply stores, and you can probably get it on Amazon. So I'd take a look for it. So you should have, as part of your water bath canner, this big old jug and a kitten, and it should always have this rack in it. This rack is very important because it keeps the jars from touching the bottom, which will help prevent them from breaking while you're actually doing the boiling and doing the water bath canning. So to get it ready, you basically want to give everything a good rinse with some hot water, and you want to put about 3 quarts of hot water in the actual canner. So the next step after you've got your canner ready is you want to get the jars ready. So we're using wide mouth ball jars. And the important thing, it's very important to use the wide mouth jars because otherwise you end up having to dig in here and it's too narrow and it's very annoying. So wide mouth pint ball jars with lids and domes, and with all of them you want to wash them in hot soapy water, but with the lids you actually want to keep them in a bowl of warm water while you're doing all of the canning because that's going to keep the sealant nice and pliable. So the first step in actually making dilly beans is making your vinegar solution. Now I've started this already with 3 cups of filtered water. Then you're going to add 3 cups of white vinegar, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I just use the store brand. So you're going to measure 3 cups in there. So once you do that, you're going to set this to boil, and you're going to add half a cup of kosher salt. You want to take a whisk and give it a good whisk to incorporate everything. And just keep an eye on it occasionally. And now we're going to actually get to filling our jars. So this is actually the easy part of prepping this. What you want to do is you want to throw a nice big sprig of dill. You can also use a dash of dried dill if you want to. 1 nice big sprig in every jar, and don't worry about exact amounts. The point is that you're putting it in here. And then you want 1 big clove of garlic per jar, and what I like to do is give it a quick slice, put it into quarters, and then we're going to take a little bit of peppercorn. Use any 5 peppercorn blend, or you can use black pepper or red pepper. It's really up to you. And just put a little dash of those in there. And now the last thing is just a dash of cayenne pepper. So we're just going to sprinkle like a little bit in here. And if you don't like them spicy, you can easily omit this. And now we put the veggies in. For the beans, all you want to do is snip the ends off. So I've already done this, but you want to snip the ends off and make sure that they're about the size where they're not going to come up over this ridge right here towards the top of the band. So everything you're doing, you're making sure that nothing comes up over the top of that band. And you just want to shove in as many as will fit. So these look like they're very close to ready. So now we've got the beans done. With carrots, what you want to do is cut them into regular sized carrot sticks. You want to scrub them, but you don't really need to peel them. And you just do the same process as you would for the dilly beans. So our jars are filled now, and our vinegar mixture is almost boiling, so I'm going to clean up really quickly, and then we'll come back and we'll start canning. All right, so now we have our jars filled and our vinegar mixture is boiled. So the last thing to do is actually assemble the jars. So we're gonna move these over here because we don't need them just yet. We're gonna take our vinegar mixture, and you wanna ladle it into the jars. I'm gonna do the one in the middle first. Ooh, it smells good in here. You wanna ladle it again just up to that ridge where the lid's going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and fill the rest of these jars. And this mixture should be enough to make 6 jars. Don't be too worried if you end up with a little more or less mixture than you were planning on. So we've got our last bit of solution going in there. So now the next thing is to put the lids on. But before you do that, you want to take a little bit of paper towel and you want to wipe the edge. That way you prevent anything from getting stuck on there. So wipe that, dry off the lid, put it there. And you just want to center it on the edge, and you'll be able to feel it because the lids have grooves in them, so it's pretty easy to figure out where to put the lid. And now the bands. What you want to do when you're putting on the bands is you want to put it on, then give it a quick spin just until you start feeling a little bit of resistance, and then you want to spin it back just a little tiny bit. So you want them to be a little bit loose but still tight enough that the lid is going to stay on, because what's going to happen is the steam is going to make that sealant melt, and that's going to attach to the lid. So go like that, and then do. So now that we have those done, we're going to move our water bath canner forward. And what I'll do is actually show you how the rack goes before you put it in. Basically, you can see these grooves here. These grooves are where your jars go. So just put them up at the edge of those, in between those grooves like this. And what that's going to do is keep the jars just far enough from the edge of the surface that the boiling water isn't going to jostle them too much and the glass won't break. So take that and just put it right into the canner. And what you want to do is make sure that you have enough hot water in the canner so that you completely cover the lid of the jars. This is one of the reasons why you put some water in before you put in the jars and then some after. So bring down the handles of the rack, cover it, and then you just want to set it to boil. So you're going to let this boil. You're going to let this come to a boil, and it's really important at this point that you never lift this lid. Do not lift the lid until it's done. Once it actually comes to a boil, and you're going to have to listen for it, you want to set a timer for 10 minutes, and you want to process it for 10 minutes, and then immediately take it off the heat after that 10 minutes, but leave the jars in there for 5 minutes before you actually take the jars out. All right, so it's been 5 minutes and we're ready to take our jars out of the canner. So what you want to do is you want tongs to take these out because obviously they're extremely hot and you don't want to boil your hands. So what you want to do, the way that I do it is there's a little bit of a trick to it. You basically want to put the tongs around the edge of the jar, give them a little twist like you're tightening them, and then grab them really carefully like that. And just drop them very carefully onto the board like that. And then don't touch them. Do not touch them. So once you do that, what you're looking for is for the little, there's a little bump in the lid, which is the seal. When that's flat and doesn't move, that's when the lid is actually sealed. Ideally, what you would do is let these cool completely before you move them at all, because what's happening right now is that heat is actually sealing the wax on top of the lid. So if you actually tried to move it right now, you risk removing the seal altogether, and then you have to keep them in the refrigerator. If everything goes according to plan and the seal is tight and everything's great, you can actually move them onto a shelf in your pantry and they'll stay for up to, I would say, 6 months to a year. We actually still have dilly beans and carrots left over from last summer that we're still eating now. To serve these, I actually like dilly beans a lot on sandwiches. You can also have them as a side dish, obviously, and dilly carrots you can really just eat straight out of the jar like you would pickles. So there you go. Dilly beans, dilly carrots, super easy, and I hope that you're ready to have a canning adventure of your own.